Good morning, everyone. Come in. I'm admitting everyone as we speak.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay, so Amelia, welcome Amelia this morning. We haven't got that much time this morning, so we're going to be super efficient and super useful for you lot. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Katya Duncan, and I'm a founder of Trafalgar Girls, the platform that's been supporting Ukrainian refugees for the last 3 years in all areas of integration in UK. Welcome to our Trafalgar Girls business series, our monthly webinars, where we help Ukrainians to get on a good career path. Many of you have had to take a break because of the war. Many of you started working in UK, but you don't necessarily work in the profession that you originally were in Ukraine. You all have got amazing skill sets. That's why I want to plug in the gap and make sure you guys have the best opportunities in terms of your career. Welcome today, Amelia Miller. She's a founder of of ivee platform. The ivee platform has been helping returners in UK, professional returners, since last year. You know, they're making huge waves in the recruitment world. They're disrupting what's the expected. You know, they're challenging employers into making sure that the employer processes are adept to finding out the hidden talent in women who are currently not working. And, you know, for us, that hidden talent includes Ukrainian refugees. Over to you, Amelia.
Thanks, Katya. Hi, everyone. It's great to meet you all. I am Amelia. As Katya said, I'm co-founder and CEO of ivee, and we exist to help women return to the workforce after taking a career break. And a career break can be for many reasons. A lot of people are quite quick to silo this problem into being just mothers, but, you know, that is far from every reason for career breaks. And of course, migration, travel, sick leave, caring for elderly parents, caring for children, redundancy. These are all reasons why you could be on a career break and be trying to re-enter the workforce. We exist to give a lot of practical insights to really kind of peel that curtain back behind the recruitment landscape and help you understand what's happening at the moment, how companies are hiring, what tools they're using, how an applicant tracking system works, and how you can create a job application that puts you in the best possible standing to actually get through the technology and get seen by a human. Because, as I'm sure you know, there's a lot of leverage of AI in the recruitment world at the moment, both on the candidate side, but also on the company side. We also have a job board, and that really is the bread and butter of ivee. So we give women access to flexible, vetted jobs at companies that are genuinely a great place to work for women returning. And we assign every company on the ivee platform a returner rating. That's a score out of 10, and that's based on six different subcategories that we know women like you look for. So things like flexibility policies, the onboarding process, maternity policies, gender split at senior leadership, and it's all there for you within the ivee platform, so you kind of don't have to go away and do any independent research. We try and make it very easy for you to ascertain whether this is actually a company that you might want to work for. And of course, because they're on the ivee platform, they want to hire from this talent pool. They want to hire women who are returning to work after a career break because they know the value and the skills and the experience that you can offer their organization. So that's what we do in a nutshell. This webinar is going to be all about kind of that 0 to 1. So getting ready for your job hunt, what the current landscape looks like, and how you can position yourselves as a candidate in the best possible way. What I will say is I really encourage this to be a two-way conversation. So there's a chat function here on Google Meet. I'll just pop a hello in the chat, so hopefully it will pop up and you can see where it is. But I would really love everybody to use this, and maybe it would be great if people want to start introducing themselves on that chat and just letting me know how long your career break has been and what your industry is. And this will really help me tailor my content to you and maybe pick out some specific examples so that I can give you some practical one-on-one advice. As I'm going through the content of the session, if you have questions along the way, please ask them in the chat so that I can pick up on them and answer them as I'm going along. And then at about 10:40, we will stop for a Q&A. So if you have any questions and you want to save it to the end, then we can of course do that. What I'm going to do is share my screen because I've got a presentation. We also are running a free return to work bootcamp, which kicks off next week, which is actually quite good timing. And what I might do is just pop the link in the comments here again, so you can sign up to that. And that's a free virtual bootcamp. It's 3 weeks long. And it basically covers what I'm going to go through today, but in a lot more detail. So it goes through everything from picking up your confidence, understanding imposter syndrome, the current hiring landscape. We then do a massive deep dive on the CV. We go through ChatGPT and AI and how you can use that to leverage your applications. We go through the LinkedIn profile, how to optimize your LinkedIn profile so that you're actually appearing in proactive candidate searches. And we also go through negotiation tactics and interview tips as well. So let me share this screen. So what I'm going to go through today is the hiring process, what it is currently looking like, especially in the UK job market, as well as the CV, because the CV is still the most important part of the application process if you're job hunting. So taking a step back, this is what usually the hiring kind of funnel looks like for a company in the UK. So how it works in an organization is there's 2 different departments involved. There's the hiring team and the hiring manager, and then there's the recruitment team. The hiring manager sits in the actual department that you would end up working in. So let's use an example, which is, let's say there's a marketing manager position. The hiring manager would usually be the head of marketing at that organization. They would identify that they've got a vacancy that they need to fill within their team. They would create a job description. They would then send that job description and send that vacancy to the recruitment team. The recruitment team sit in a completely separate department, and they are responsible for getting in all of these job descriptions from all of the different hiring managers, probably tweaking them, making them read better, sound better, and then distributing them into their applicant tracking system. And they would then automatically get pinged out to a lot of different job boards. And that's where you as a candidate would see it. So for example, LinkedIn jobs, it will be integrated in their applicant tracking system and the job would immediately ping out to LinkedIn. They would also put it on their company website as well. So that's step 1, and that's where you would submit your application. The second stage is your application would go straight to what is called an applicant tracking system, or an ATS. This is a piece of software that pretty much every company now uses. And the job of an ATS is to collate all of the different applications from all of the different job boards and bring them all into one place and use algorithms and use technology to cull and cut a huge amount of CVs that are not relevant to the job. How it does that, I'll go into this in a lot more detail in a minute, but for example, it will use keyword screening technology to identify, does your CV contain keywords from the job description? If you make it through the applicant tracking system, you will then go to stage 3, which is you will get seen by the first set of human eyes in the form of the recruitment team. The recruitment team's job is to look through CVs. It's what they're trained to do. They do it all day, every day. They look through CVs and they figure out, do you have experience and are you a good candidate for this job description? So they literally have job description and CV, and they're just plowing through CVs and they're pulling out the ones that they think are the most qualified. You will have either a phone call or maybe a video interview with the recruitment team before they then build a shortlist of around 10 candidates. And that's what they send to the hiring manager. So then it leaves the recruitment team and it goes to the hiring manager. The hiring manager will then do one or multiple interviews, usually over video, but maybe in person. And they will look for, do you have the right qualifications? Do you have the right hard skills? And importantly, will you be a fit? Because that's the team that you're actually going to be working for. So they're looking for a cultural fit as well. If you pass that final stage, at that point, the offer will be made. This process at the moment in the UK takes around 25 days from the job vacancy being realised all the way through to the offer being made. So it's a relatively fast process. And that's why it's really important to be applying for jobs that are being posted recently, because they are being filled quite quickly. And so if you see a job on LinkedIn, for example, that is 3 months old, it's probably been filled. And so I would always recommend filtering your job search for the most recent jobs that have been posted first. We also know that candidates that apply to jobs in the first 10, so if you're one of the first 10 candidates and you make it through to stage 3 on this screen, so you're seen by the recruitment team, your CV is viewed on average 4 times as long if you're one of the first 10 candidates. And that's why it's really important to be an early applicant. So now we're going to move on to the CV. Oh, thank you guys so much for putting your introductions in the chat. It's super helpful. Fantastic. So it seems like most of you are looking for roles, and you're in that job hunting stage at the moment. So hopefully this will be very relevant content. As I said, the CV is still the most important part of an application. What is a CV? A CV is essentially, it's a document, and it showcases very succinctly your professional and your educational background. It is usually the first impression that you give to a potential employer. And the reason that employers, hiring teams, recruitment teams still use the CV is it's a very quick way to compare candidates, because give or take, they look and feel quite similar. And so it's a way that they can very quickly ascertain, does this person have the right skills for the role? Do they have the right experience? Do I want to take them through to the next stage? There's 3 key areas that your CV should have in this final bullet point here. Number 1, a clear structure. Number 2, relevant experience. Number 3, alignment with the job description. And if your CV has all 3 of those things, the chances are you're going to get through to that next stage of that funnel. That blue box there in the corner is super important. When you are seen by a human in the form of a recruiter, they spend on average just 6 seconds looking at your CV on the first time they see it, which is absolutely crazy. And that's why it is so important to very quickly hit them between the eyes and show them within the first 3 seconds that you are a relevant candidate, it's a well-structured CV, and it's got alignment with the job description. You can't waste any time on the CV. These are the types of questions that a recruitment manager will be asking when they're reading your CV. Does this person have the skills we need? Is their experience relevant? Is the CV well organized and easy to follow? And you'll see this word relevant kind of crop up quite a lot in what I'm saying, and it couldn't be more true. They are looking for a candidate that is hyper relevant to the job description. That's what recruitment teams are trained to do. They don't want to have to make conclusions. You don't want to make them connect the dots. You want to very clearly show them, I am very, very relevant for this job, so that they don't have to do any lateral thinking. They can just read it, and within 6 seconds they can go, yep, this candidate looks relevant. I'm going to pass them through to the next stage. So starting with the structure of the CV, looks matter. You could be the most relevant candidate in the world, but if your CV is formatted in a bad way, then recruitment managers are just going to close your CV. We speak to recruitment managers all the time, and I ask them, operationally, how do you read CVs? And what they say is they'll have a big batch of CVs, maybe 50 to 100, and they'll open them in chunks. So they'll open like 20 CVs. So they'll have 20 tabs open on their Google, and they will open a CV and they say, my mouse will literally be hovering over the cross button, the close button. So for example, up here where my mouse is, and they will be looking for an excuse to press that close button, because they want to get rid of CVs. They don't want to give you the benefit of the doubt. They don't want to look for reasons to put you through. They want to look for reasons to take you out of the process because it's such a candidate heavy job market. And that's why you don't want to fall at the first hurdle. If a recruitment manager opens a CV and it's anything more than 3 pages, or if it's hard to read and their brain is finding it hard to focus on the sections, again, they'll probably close your CV. So a few best practices in terms of the format. Make sure your CV is 2 pages maximum. Anything more than 2 pages is a no-no. Make sure it's saved and sent in a PDF format. So don't save or send your CV in a doc format or a Microsoft Word format. Always send it in a PDF format. Make sure you have clear sections. So this CV on the left is an example of a well-formatted CV. This is actually Ivee's hybrid CV template, which I'll go through in a minute, and I can share it with Katia to send to everybody after the call, so you will have access to it to edit it yourselves. Clear sections is really important. It allows the recruitment manager to focus their eyes. So having your name and your personal info in a block color at the top, a block colored section, having larger font, use of bold text, use of color, use of horizontal lines to literally break up the sections is super important. Have a maximum of only 2 bullet points per experience, and make sure those bullet points are very concise. As you can see on that CV on the left, they're not paragraphs, they're just very, very concise sentences. And crucially, having a title under your name, and that title under your name should match exactly with the role that you are applying to. So if you're applying to marketing manager roles, underneath your name it should say marketing manager or digital marketing manager or marketing executive, again demonstrating you're a hyper relevant candidate. On the right here is an example of a badly formatted CV. The reason this is badly formatted, the text is centered, they haven't kind of broken the sections up in a very clear way. There's a lot of white space here at the bottom. It's hard to focus the eye. They don't have a title underneath their name, and let's imagine this CV is 7 pages long, for example. All in all, it would make for a bad first impression. I have answered most of these, but I'll jump through them very quickly. You know, should you reveal your age and your gender and a photo? The short answer is no. So you don't have to say, you know, my age is, my gender is. They will probably gauge your gender based on your name, and again, they'll probably gauge your age based on your education years. If you don't want to reveal your age, you can just remove the years from your education section of your CV. And you should never put a photo on your CV. It's not needed. If people want to see what you look like, they could go to your LinkedIn profile. When should you start leaving out experience? This is a question we often get for people that have had long careers and their CV has exceeded 2 pages. This is a judgment call, but what I would say is make sure the experience section is only got the most relevant experience for the job you're applying to. So for example, if you started your career in hospitality and you then moved to marketing and you're applying to marketing roles now, I would recommend condensing the entire section of hospitality into one experience, because it's not super relevant to what you're applying to, and you don't want to waste a bunch of space with irrelevant experience. So what are the different types of CV? There are 3. So I'm just going to address the question that Victoria's asked, which is, I was told by one of the recruiters that their programs don't read PDF formats. That's not true. You should always send it in PDF unless the job description specifies. So if the application process says, you know, please upload your CV in a Word format, or what some ATSs do is they make you break your CV down. So they make you almost type it out into the different sections, or they make you upload your CV and then they extract the information into their own sections and you fill it out. But by default, it should always be PDF. There are 3 main types of CV. The first is a chronological CV. This is the most common type of CV. It's probably the format that your CV is in. And this lists your work experience in chronological order, starting with the most recent first. This is the best option if you've had a continuous work history and you're currently employed. This is actually the worst CV to use if you're on a career break and you're returning to work. The second is a skills-based CV. This breaks your CV down in sections based on skills, and it jumbles up your work experience underneath those skills in terms of its timeline. This is the best option if you have no work experience at all. So graduates are told to use the skills-based CV. Again, it's not the best CV to use if you're returning to work. The third type is a hybrid CV. This is basically a combination of both, and I will share my screen and go through a template of a hybrid CV. But essentially what it does is it highlights your key skills first at the top, but then underneath it jumps into the chronological work experience. And this is proven to be the best for women returning to work after a career break. And I'll show you a study that was done by the Australian government that kind of proved this in 2022. So this is the study that they did. And basically they looked at thousands of people returning to work, the majority of which were women, because we know women take far more career breaks. And they followed them on their return to the workforce. And they specifically looked at the different type of CV that was used and the likelihood that that CV had of getting chosen by the hiring manager to bring that candidate in for an interview. And this chart here on the right shows the type of CV and the percent of interviewers that chose that CV. So what you can see is the duration CV, which is what Australians called the chronological CV, it's the exact same, was the least likely to get chosen by the interviewer, followed by the skills-based CV. And the hybrid CV had over double the chances of getting chosen to bring that candidate in for an interview when they were on a career break. This is really powerful data because it's the first big study that has been done on returners. And it shows that the chronological template, which is, the one everyone says you should do. If you Google CV, that's what you'll find. It's the worst thing for you to use. And that's why at Ivee, we strongly recommend moving your CV into a hybrid template. So now I'm going to touch briefly on applicant tracking systems and the algorithms they use. An applicant tracking system, as I said, is that piece of software. About 90% of companies use them, especially in the current job market, because there is a lot of applicants per job. About 15% more applicants now than there was 5 years ago. And that means companies need to rely on software to cut through that noise so that they're not having to manually go through thousands of CVs. But that means that they have these blanket algorithms to really cut a huge number. They cut about 80% of CVs now. When I made this deck, it was 75%, but now it's 80%. So what does this mean? It means you need to optimize your CV for the applicant tracking system and not necessarily for the human. So the main thing they scan for is keywords from the job description. So you need to make sure that you have keywords from the job description present in your CV. And that means you need to tailor your CV to every single job that you're applying to. Now, this might sound quite cumbersome. This might sound like a lot of work, but you can use AI, you can use ChatGPT to help you do that. And I'll maybe show you a quick demonstration of how you could do this. So for anyone that doesn't know what ChatGPT is, it is AI, and it's a chatbot where you can talk to an LLM, a large language model. It's a conversational tool. It's completely free. You just create an account, a ChatGPT account, and you can ask it to do a huge amount of things. And basically what it does is it has access to all the information that exists on the internet, and it's got a very high processing power. So it can basically collate everything that exists on the internet to help you very quickly with anything you need to know. So the way you could use it is, this is what ChatGPT looks like. And as you can see, the interface is like a chatbot. What I'm going to do is just pull up a marketing manager job description, just in this example that I've kind of been using. And I'll just copy this from another tab. And I'm going to then open that ChatGPT chat. And this is an example of how you could ask it to tell you what keywords from the job description are likely to be flagged by an applicant tracking system. So you would say something like, I am applying to the below role. Tell me the key words in this job description that I should include on my CV to get through an ATS. So that's the prompt that I'm giving it. And underneath, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to paste the entire job description. And then I'm going to send that. And then what ChatGPT will do is it knows how ATSs behave. And it's coming back and it's saying, to help your CV get through an applicant tracking system, it's essential to mirror the language and keywords from the job description. Here's a comprehensive list of the keywords and phrases you should consider integrating naturally into your resume. And here it's extracting those keywords. And so it's read the job description and it's giving you those keywords. These are super important because these are, clearly hard skills. Any piece of software like HubSpot or Demandbase or Salesforce, those are pieces of software, and those are going to be valued very highly. Obviously, it's come back with a lot. So then you can go ahead and you can ask it, rank these keywords from most least important. And this is great so that you can help prioritize which ones you're integrating in. So now it's coming back with, what are the top tier must have keywords? And it's giving those to you. What are those mid tier keywords? And what are those lower tier keywords? So that's great. It gives you, a solid kind of foundation and understanding. You can then go one step further and you can actually upload your CV to ChatGPT, and you can ask it to integrate these words into your CV. So you can add a file into ChatGPT, and I've just got a dummy resume that I will pull up. Cool. So I've got a dummy resume. So you upload your CV, and the first thing that is quite useful to ask ChatGPT is basically what would my CV currently score in an ATS? And what I mean by a score is basically how an ATS works is it scans your CV, it scans the job description, and it identifies a score. And if it's lower than 80%, it won't bring you through. So I would say, what would the attached CV currently score for this job description in an ATS? And this is a really good way to kind of get a baseline understanding of how your CV is currently formatted. So it's bringing it back and it's saying its overall ATS match is 55 to 65%. That's not good enough. And that means your CV probably is not going to be making it through that first stage. So if you're getting a lot of immediate rejections, or if you're not hearing back from jobs, this will be why. And so what you can do is you can say, rewrite my CV, weave in keywords from the job description so that my score is greater than 80%. And then you send that. And here it's taken your CV, it's coming back, and it's optimizing it for this current job. So it's literally coming back with the exact CV, and it's just weaving these words into it. And obviously, it takes 30 seconds to do this. What you must always do is make sure you're reading over it and making sure that you are not lying in your CV. So if it's woven in hard skills that you don't have, then of course you should remove those. But it's a great place to start. And it means you can be tailoring your CV very quickly. So if anyone is spending a large amount of time applying, this is a great way to cut through that workload. Of course, you never want your application to sound like it's been written by AI, which is why feeding it your CV and asking it to just weave in these words will get around that, because it's not going to rewrite your CV. So that's a very much a whistle-stop tour of how you can use ChatGPT to help. We go into this in a lot more detail in the boot camp, so do join that if you want to kind of really get into the weeds of this.
I think what would be good, Amelia, to touch upon the topic where you upload the CV and you say which areas, which career paths I could take, because quite a lot of people here are career switchers.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. So again, that's another place that you could use ChatGPT. So what I'm going to do is open a second blank chat, and there's a few things that you can do. So if you're feeling lost and you want to pivot career, or you have no idea what industry you want to come back into, especially in the UK, there's a few key things you can ask ChatGPT. So again, you can upload your CV if that's something that you want to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and upload again, just uploading a dummy. CV. And you can ask it a few things. So you can say, this is my CV. I'm entering the UK. For example, you say, I'm entering the UK job market from Ukraine. I am not sure what career to pursue. And then what I would recommend doing is listing out your hard skills and soft skills. So you would say, my hard skills are, and this is where I would recommend really doing some work to sit down with a pen and paper and map out a comprehensive list of all of your hard skills and all of your soft skills. So I'm just going to put down a few of my hard skills. Of course, this will be completely different for everybody else. I'm just going to do a few, but just in the interest of time, I'm going to say my soft skills are, and soft skills are more personality, like personnel. So things like leadership, communication, time management, for example. And again, make sure you do the work to really sit and think about what those skills are for you. So you've uploaded your CV, you've uploaded a list of your hard skills and a list of your soft skills. And then you're going to ask, what careers could my skills be a good fit for? So I'm going to send that straight away. And then ChatGPT is going to come back and say, you know, based on your skills, based on your CV, this is what I think you might be good at. What I would then recommend doing is feeding through more information about actually what you want from your career, because it might not just be that you want a good salary. There might be a lot more. You know, do you want flexibility? Do you want a role that you can work part-time in? Do you want a role that's local to you that you can walk to work from? Do you want a role that is going to mean that you have a lot of progression? Do you want a role that has a high salary? Do you want a role that's just much more hands-off and much more administrative, and you actually don't want to jump back into a high-flying career? You want to do something that is a little bit more you know, administrative, where you don't have to necessarily be fighting for a promotion every 6 months, for example. And that might be what you want in your particular career and your particular goals. And this will vary person to person, but it's important to give that information to ChatGPT. So it's come back and it said, based on my CV and my skills, it thinks I would be great in digital marketing, content creation, tourism and ecotourism, environmental education, etc., etc. Here, what is really important to ask is, what industries in the UK are actually growing and what industries are shrinking? Because that's a really good way to focus your job hunt. Because in my opinion, if you're transitioning into a new industry and you have a choice, you're going to put yourself in a much better position if you're actually applying to industries that are exploding, because that means they're going to be hiring a huge amount over the next 6 months to 1 year, versus industries that are shrinking. For example, it's come back and it said tourism. I know the tourism sector is massively shrinking in the UK, so applying to tourism jobs might not be the best thing to do. So then you can ask, what industries are growing in headcount and hiring, okay, that my skills would be a good fit for. And then you can ask it to actually give you companies. So I'm going to say, give me a comprehensive list of 20 companies. And depending on the size of company that you want, you can ask, you can be really granular, and you can say, give me a list of companies that have just raised money. Because we know that when a company has raised, like a scale up has raised a big funding round, they're going to be hiring massively and very quickly. So I'm going to say, give me a comprehensive list of 20 companies that have just raised money and are hiring right now. And then you can say, provide a link to these companies' career pages. So again, that's just a very quick prompt. The more detailed your prompt is, and what I mean by a prompt is what you're asking ChatGPT, the more detailed that is, the better. But of course, mine's actually quite brief, but again, it's still super helpful. So it's come back and it's actually given some images about key hiring trends, which is super helpful. So if you're interested, you can read that. But this is what I'm really looking for. So what are those growing industries? And then what are the companies? So this is super useful. So here's a list of 20 UK-based companies that have recently secured funding and are actively hiring. It gives you the company, it gives you the industry, it gives you a description, and then it also gives you the careers page. And that's super helpful because then you can go on literally and you're on the careers page and you can just find a lot more information out about that company. And then you could go ahead and apply to those roles, because it's always best to apply directly on the company page. And again, I asked it for a list of 20, but you could ask it for a list of 100. You could ask it for only AI companies, for example, because we know AI is a hugely growing industry. So yeah, that is, again, a very quick whistle-stop tour of how you can use ChatGPT to really map out what you want. And you can really think about it as a career advisor or a coach in your pocket. I use ChatGPT for so many different ways. I use it as a founder for coaching. You can ask it these questions and you can say, speak to me as though you were a career coach. What would you advise me to do? And it can come back with, in my opinion, much better answers than a career coach would even be able to give you. Because it's got all of the information that exists over the entire internet. It can provide, in 5 seconds, a list like it just has with links. So it's super practical and super helpful. I'm just going to pause that. I know someone put their hand up, so I'm not sure if people can unmute, but I'm just going to have a quick read of the questions. Yeah, so someone's asked, what if every applicant has included the keywords in the CV? It's a really good question, and job seekers are doing this a lot more. Not every job seeker does. And what I will say is functions like LinkedIn that have the easy apply, those are not tailored. And that's where the bulk of applicants come from. So job applicants literally can apply in their sleep, and they have these things set up where their CV can automatically be sent off. That's not tailored. And so that's what the applicant tracking system is trying to cull. It's all of those applicants that are just firing off 100 applications per day with the same CV. So if you are tailoring it, you're already putting yourself above most of the applicants. But of course, there are quite a lot of applicants that are doing that. So just making sure that it's very relevant. The main thing is that if a hiring manager or recruitment manager was to read your CV, they would think you were a hyper relevant candidate for the role. Cool. I will pause there. And now, yeah, I'll open it up for a Q&A. So if anybody has any further questions, I don't know if are we doing hands up or putting it in the chat?
Yes, we've got what 8 minutes left for Q&A. So guys, either ask the question in the chat or speak to us. I think there's one coming in the chat now.
Fantastic. Yes. Can an ATS understand if a CV has been written by ChatGPT? No. ChatGPT, there's no kind of plagiarism. There are a few giveaways in ChatGPT. So there's a few things to look out for. And that is less for the ATS and more for the human when they read it, because they read so many CVs, they can pick up on the things that are obvious from ChatGPT. The first one is American spelling. So it uses American spelling. So it will spell things like organization with a Z. Again, a prompt you can give it is you can just say, make sure you use British spelling if you're applying to UK jobs, for example. The second thing it uses an M dash. An M dash is basically a very elongated dash. Sounds quite subtle, but again, if you're used to reading loads of CVs and cover letters, crucially, this happens a lot in cover letters, it's very obvious when you see a long M dash, because if you're typing something out, you wouldn't use that. You know it's been written by AI. And the third thing is it usually capitalizes a lot of titles. It will capitalize every word of the title, which again, if you were typing it out as a human, you wouldn't necessarily do. So those are three key things. You can also, again, a prompt you can give ChatGPT is you can say, this sounds like it's been written by AI, make it sound more human, make sure the punctuation and grammar is grammatically correct. So again, all of these little prompts you can give it to make sure you're not falling into those traps. I've been told that 70% of roles in the UK are not advertised, which means people are introduced and recommended by their network. What is your opinion? Really good question. I don't think it's 70%. I think it's less than that. However, yes, short answer is a lot of roles. Actually, that's not true. Most roles are advertised because legally most companies have to put the job out. So most roles will be advertised. However, some of those roles will already have been filled by a referral from a network. The best type of application you can do is an internal referral. What I mean by that is when companies are hiring, especially bigger companies, when they put the role out, they also have a internal program where if a candidate is recommended by an internal employee and that candidate gets hired, the internal employee gets paid around 5% of the first year's salary. So they get a financial kickback. And the reason they do that is because they want internal referrals, because they know that if you're connected to someone that works there, you're going to be a better applicant. So if you find a role that you really like, the best thing to do is to go on LinkedIn. I'll share my screen very quickly to just go through an example. Go on LinkedIn, which is taking ages to load. So you go on LinkedIn, you go on the company website, the company page. So say, for example, you found a role at Deloitte that you wanted to apply for. You click on the company page. You click on people. So this is people that work there. And then you scroll all the way to the right. And you click on how are you connected. And this basically tells you. Here we go. You click on how you connected and you filter by first degree connection. So this is your LinkedIn connections that you know that work at Deloitte. And if you scroll down, you can see who they are. So these are all people that could be your internal referrer. And so you look at that list and you go, who am I closest with? Who do I want to ask? For me, it would be Dan, my friend from university. So I would go ahead and I would message Dan. I would say, hey, I'm about to apply for this role. I think I'm perfect for it. Please, can you give me an internal referral? Because if I get the role, they get thousands of pounds. And Dan would want to do that because, everyone wants to make some money. And so that's how you could get that internal referral. So that's quite a quick way to figure out who you know that work at a company. Do you recommend to find the recruitment agency for help in career growth, looking for the next role? Agencies are really good. What I'm going to do actually is just quickly share a list that I put together for our community this morning, and I'm just going to share it in the chat. And I would recommend saving this because it's quite a comprehensive list. And there's some agencies included here. What I will say is agencies can be hit and miss. Oh, sorry, 1 second. To make sure that I've got everything there. Agencies can definitely be hit and miss. They are also, I think there's a limit on how much I can put in the chat. Maybe I'll email this list to you, Katya, afterwards, and you can send it.
Yeah, I'll share it afterwards. And
Perfect, thank you. I'll send it to you right now, actually, so I don't forget. But yes, agencies can be fickle, and what I mean by that is they only place a small number of roles because they get paid a lot per role. They're not constantly placing 20 people a day, so it's a much lower chance that they will be able to place you. However, it's still worth being on their radar and being on their books. So what I would say is, yes, do your research, ask ChatGPT, give me a list of 20 recruitment agencies in the UK or your specific city that are focused on women returning to work or that are focused on my industry. And then again, you've got that tailored list. And then what you can do is I would go ahead and connect with the recruiters there on LinkedIn and say, hey, this is my experience. I'm looking for work. Would love to get on your radar, on your books. Let me know if there's any opportunities, because for them, that's great. They want to grow their talent pool and they want to have a number of candidates on their books. But what I would say is it's not going to be an overnight job offer. So as long as you're aware of that, and as long as you're doing multiple things, so you're still applying on job boards, then agencies are definitely good. But I wouldn't do it as your sole focus. What sites would you recommend to look at jobs? Again, I've just pasted that to Katya on. I'll put what I can in the chat. That's just a few, and there's a lot more. But again, ask ChatGPT. But yeah, these are a few that are great, especially for women that are returning after any form of career break. LinkedIn and Indeed are great, but recruitment managers, they can see where all of the applicants have come from. So when they look through their list on their ATS, they can see who's come through LinkedIn, and they actually put the least weighting on LinkedIn and Indeed candidates because it's such a minefield. There's so many applicants on LinkedIn right now that they value your application less. So that's why the best way to do it is an internal referral. If not, apply directly on the company website. If not, apply on a more niche job board like Ivee or like some of the ones I've listed there. Worst case, apply on LinkedIn. Of course, lots of people do get hired through LinkedIn. It's still the number one recruitment tool. So definitely still use LinkedIn. Make sure your profile is optimized on LinkedIn. We go through this in our boot camp, but a lot of companies do proactive searching on LinkedIn. So they'll look for candidates and you want to make sure that your profile is showing up there.
Yes, Amelia, I'm cognizant of the fact that you've got your important meeting at 11 o'clock. Thank you so much for sharing this absolute huge amount of useful information. The good thing is that we've got recording for the guys whose English is not amazing. You could keep re-watching it from our YouTube again and again, because there's a lot of information out there. Ivee as a website has got tons of resources, so I'll share the link to the website. It's got Amelia's tips, her little videos which are very useful, and also jobs which are tailored to returners. And many of them are all about flexibility, as mothers amongst us know. That's very important. Also, we'll share information about the free boot camp that Ivee is running for British returners, and I'm sure the Ukrainian contingent will be very useful in there. Thank you so much for offering, Amelia.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, we've got so many women in our community that are on a career break due to coming to the UK from other countries, not just Ukraine, but all around the world. And we do a lot of events as well in person. And our next event is next Thursday, actually. So if anyone lives in London, our next event is in Hyde Park. I don't know if you're coming, Katya. Are you coming to our picnic?
I'm in Croatia.
Oh, Shame. But yeah, so if anyone wants to, you know, connect with us in person and connect with other people in the community, then definitely come along to that as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you, Amelia.
Amazing. Thank you very much, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.